I hadn't seen her in 42 years. Her name was June. Before Carol, before the kids, before the mortgage and prostate checks, there was June. She was my college sweetheart. We were inseparable. Thought we'd get married young and start a life full of music, road trips, and Christmases in Vermont. But life had other plans. My draft number came up in 1972, and that was the last time I saw her, waving goodbye through the glass at the station, tears in her eyes, a promise to wait on her lips. When I came back, 2 years later, she was gone. Moved, married, no forwarding address. I never stopped wondering. But this isn't a story about June. This is a story about my wife, Carol. We'd been married 38 years when the reunion invitation came in the mail. My old college was holding a class of 70 for homecoming weekend. I wasn't going to go. Most of those guys were probably dead or divorced. But Carol insisted. "You need to get out of the house," she said, waving the invite in my face. "You might even run into someone you know." I drove the 3 hours alone. Carol had a church retreat that weekend. I kissed her goodbye Thursday morning, and left before the sun came up. The reunion was what you'd expect: loud jackets, bad knees, and people pretending to remember each other. I was halfway through a warm beer when I saw her. June. Same green eyes. Same crooked smile. Time had softened her, but she still had that glow. But here's the thing. She didn't recognize me. I walked right up to her, said my name, waited for something, a gasp, a tear, anything. She just smiled politely and said, "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." I was stunned. I stammered, said something dumb like, "We dated," but she just shook her head. "That's not possible," she said. "I was with someone else all through college." I didn't push it. I made a joke, backed away, but I couldn't let it go. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was off. Way off. The next morning, I looked her up online, and that's when I saw it. Her maiden name wasn't what I remembered. She'd changed it legally in 1975 because she married someone, and that someone was me, or at least it should have been. But instead, it was my brother. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour. Her name had changed, June Anderson, now June Keller, married in 1975. The same year I came back home from overseas. And the groom, my brother, Richard Keller. I felt sick. I called Carol. She didn't pick up. I didn't leave a message. What was I even going to say? That I just met the love of my life, and she married my brother, and apparently, she doesn't even remember me. It didn't make sense. Unless something was being hidden. Not forgotten, hidden. That night, I opened my old footlocker from college, the one I kept in the garage and hadn't touched in decades. Inside were photos, journals, letters I'd written and never sent. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just some sign that I wasn't crazy. That June and I had actually happened, and I found it. A photo. Me and June at a lake, laughing, her arms around my neck. It was real. I hadn't made it up. So why didn't she remember? The next morning, I drove straight to Richard's house. We hadn't talked in years. Not since Mom's funeral. He lived 2 towns over in a quiet cul-de-sac, retired early from real estate. Still had the same smug little grin when he opened the door. "Wow," he said. "Didn't expect to see you." "Yeah," I replied. "Mind if I come in?" He hesitated, then let me through. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh coffee. I didn't waste time. "How did you meet June?" He blinked. "What? June, your wife. How'd you meet?" He looked nervous. "College. We met in college." "No, you didn't," I said. "I did. She was mine." He laughed, but it was dry, forced. "Look, I don't know what kind of memory you're chasing." "I'm not chasing anything, Richard. I just want the truth." He sat down slowly, like an old dog curling up in a guilty spot. "You weren't supposed to come back," he finally said. I froze. "What?" He looked at me, eyes hollow. "The letters you sent from overseas. Mom never gave them to her. Never mailed them. She thought June was a distraction. Thought you needed to come home and start fresh." "And you?" I asked, voice tight. "I didn't plan it," he whispered. "But she was alone. You were gone. We got close. You stole her." "No," he said. "I filled the space you left." I drove home in silence. No music. No talk radio. Just the hum of the road and the sound of my own breathing, shallow and slow. I kept hearing Richard's voice. "You weren't supposed to come back." Like I was some ghost that came back too late. Like my life had already been rewritten without my permission. But something still didn't sit right. Carol. Why had she pushed me to go to that reunion? Why, after all these years, had she encouraged it, when I hadn't even mentioned June in decades? When I walked in the house, she was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of something that smelled like beef stew. "Hey, honey," she said without looking up. "How was it?" I stared at her for a long time. She finally turned, and her smile faltered when she saw my face. "What happened?" she asked. "I saw June," I said flatly. She didn't flinch. I know, she replied. Just like that. Calm. Too calm. You know. She put down the spoon. She and Richard moved back to town 10 years ago. I saw her at the grocery store once. We talked. She didn't recognize me either. I felt the room tilt. You never told me. She wiped her hands on a towel. What was the point? That life was over. You moved on. We built something real. No, Carol. You helped bury it. You knew I might see her there. That's why you wanted me to go. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. I thought maybe it would bring closure, she whispered. You always looked haunted when her name came up. I sat down hard. Then she added, there's more. My stomach dropped. I didn't mean to keep it from you, she said. I really didn't. But once it started, I couldn't find a way out. What started? I asked, voice low. She sat across from me, folded her hands like in prayer. Richard told me everything. About June, the letters, your mother interfering. He told me before we got engaged. I blinked. What? Carol nodded. He said you'd never bring it up, that you'd moved on, and there was no need to dig it back up. But after we were married, I found the photo of you and her at the lake. I knew it wasn't just some old crush. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid, she whispered. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd hate your family. Afraid you'd go looking for her, and forget what we had. But I didn't forget, I said. I just never got closure. She wiped a tear away. So go get it. I looked up. What? She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded paper. She gave me her number that day at the store, in case you ever wanted to talk. I sat in my truck outside June's house for nearly 20 minutes before getting out. Her lawn was trimmed. Wind chimes hung from the porch. A dog barked somewhere down the block. When she opened the door, her face changed. Something flickered. Recognition. Regret. Can I help you? She asked gently. I think we used to know each other, I said. She tilted her head. From where? Hudson College. Class of '74. She stared for a moment. Then something shifted in her eyes. Michael. I nodded. Oh my God, she whispered, hand over her mouth. I didn't recognize you. It's been a long time. She stepped aside. Please come in. We sat in the living room. She poured tea. Neither of us touched it. I thought you forgot me, I finally said. She looked down. I tried. Why? She sighed. Because remembering made it harder. Your letters stopped. Your mother told me you'd moved on. She even said you met someone overseas. I didn't. I know that now. There was silence. Heavy, but honest. I married Richard because I was heartbroken. He reminded me of you. He was kind, familiar, but I never loved him the way I loved you. Do you still? She didn't answer. The next are passed in pieces. Memories, apologies, truths we buried for decades. She told me she had thought of calling me dozens of times, but the years had gotten heavy, so had the guilt. I told her about my life with Carol, the good and the bad, our kids, the laughter, the fights, the loyalty, and how the ghost of June never really left. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. I'm sorry I didn't remember you that night, she said softly. You deserved better. We both did, I replied. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. It was too late for that. But it wasn't too late for peace. Back home, I sat across from Carol at the kitchen table. Well, she asked. She remembers, I said. Carol nodded, not asking for details. Just took my hand. Some stories don't end with fireworks. Some just fade into the quiet. But even the quiet can carry truth. And for the first time in years, I felt free.